Hello and welcome. This is Dr. Tanya Biglow coming to you live and in full effect one more time with some different type of training today. So today's training is for parents, people who have children, people who have a child, people who are considering parenting, anybody who is responsible for the upbringing of a child or of children. This one is for you. So I was actually reading, which is something that I do quite a bit, a book from a friend of a friend. His name is Cuddy Bacon, and he's a PhD also. And he wrote a book about how to educate your children to become millionaires, right? And the book is a very good read. I highly recommend that you buy the book. Again, How to Teach Your Children to Become Millionaires by Cuddy Bacon III. He's a friend of a friend. So I was reading that and it dawned on me, right? For us parents, we never really received a handbook on how to raise our children, right? And especially in the African American community, sometimes we think that it is an oxymoron, or we think that it's taboo to ask for help in rearing our children. And I know that might sound crazy, but you'd be surprised. A lot of people who I know personally have not taken the responsibility to train their children, right? That just sounds ludicrous. It may sound ludicrous to you. I know it may not sound ludicrous to you, but it sounded ludicrous to me, because if you have a child, you're responsible for that individual. That child did not ask to come here. So are you responsible for them financially? You're responsible for making sure that they get exactly what it is that they need in order to live a successful life. And so, but nobody ever stops to say, how do you do this? How do you actually train your children? Some people think, hey, I gave birth to them, let them figure it out on their own. And I know that's not sometimes a conscious conversation that a person has, but if you know that there are life lessons that your child may need to hear or understand at some point in their life, I want to know, at what point do you bring it up in the conversation? Do you wait until all hell breaks loose before you begin to have that conversation? Or do you plan to provide them counseling about it before it becomes a problem? So I said, well, let me jump on here and do a quick training because for whatever reason, this is an area that I've kind of studied, because I've studied people a lot. And in my conversations, sometimes I get feedback, and a lot of people say, well, Tanya, your stuff is so easy to understand. You have a PhD, but you don't use these big words, and you don't talk over our head. You really kind of talk to a person. And one of the main reasons why I do that is because I have to train my children. Like when I learn something, I come home and I teach them. And they can't understand trigonometry, and they can't understand all these big words. So I take it upon myself to break it down so that they can understand. I literally learn how to put things on the bottom shelf so that they can understand it. So what we're going to talk about today is 3 steps to help you train your children to lead a successful life. Okay, so 3 steps to help you train your children to live a successful life. So let's just go straight into it. And I promise not to be before you long. I hope this is not going to be long, but this is a really passionate topic for me. So bear with me on this, right? And it's all structured and it's all documented. So 1 is stay general, right? So make sure that you don't hone in on the specifics of what your child must do, right? Now, there are some basics, right? We must breathe in order to live. We must eat less and move more in order to stay fit or to remain a certain size. So there are some things that need to happen in order to live a certain lifestyle, right? But as it relates to the level of success, first thing is stay general, right? Because at the end of the day, success is relative. Success is relative based on what it is that you're comparing success to. Now, I've had a lot of education. I mean, from grammar school on up to higher education, and I just kept going, right? And I'm still self-educating myself. But that's one thing that I chose not to force upon my children. Why? Because it is a very good possibility that they don't want to go and get a PhD, that they don't want to get a master's degree. Heck, they may not even want to get an undergrad degree. And as it relates to success, you should be okay with them identifying a goal that is serving not just to themselves, but also to society, right? So success is really relative. We cannot compare, success like, oh, success to you is getting a PhD when this child doesn't even like school, right? So you're really just setting them up for failure if you're forcing them to do something that their personality will not hold. Now, this is the one thing. I've had a couple of kids, right? I've had a couple of kids, and this is what I know. Each and every one of them are different. And I knew it from the moment they were in my womb. I could tell the way that one turned inside my womb as opposed to another one. I had my son, who is actually, I'm very proud of him. He's 18, he'll be 19 this year, but he's graduating from high school. He's getting his associate's degree all at the same time, right? Just relative, but he was a very calm child. He was, very laid back. He was one of those kids who didn't need to be out in the streets all the time. I'm like, hey, you want to go outside? He's like, no, too much stuff going on over out there. I'm going to stay in. But that's his personality compared to my oldest daughter, Trinity, which is a mini me, who's loud and always talking and always wants to help individuals. And when she was in my womb, I mean, she was kicking, and I'm like, whoa, is it two of them in there or what? But individuals come here with a certain personality. So when we understand that as parents, we should be able to allow our children to have a certain voice, or to allow their voice to be heard to a certain degree. Because what it is that we have, or the level of success that we have for ourselves, that's interpersonal. It has absolutely nothing to do with the wants and the will of the child that we have. So one, stay in general, make sure that we understand that success is relative. Also, we need to understand that success is subjective, right? So what they want is based strictly on who they are, because our children, each and every one of them, are individuals. So if I stay focused on my oldest son and my oldest daughter. So my oldest son is very analytical. He has a photographic memory. He is just an engineer, or someone who needs structure. He likes it this way, that way, this way. I mean, he flows well with the system, and he has a very strategic mind for engineering. Now, that's just what I see when I see him. And although he's going to college and he's right now getting his associate's degree, it's not necessarily written in stone that he really wants to go and get a bachelor's degree. Now, I highly recommend that you educate yourself. But I want you to educate yourself based on where it is that you see your life going. So if you don't see yourself being a mathematician, I don't see the reason why you would go get a degree in mathematics. Does that make sense? So understand that one, success is relative. Two, success is subjective based on the individual person. And also in staying general, we want to make sure that we understand that success is variable, right? So what you want today may not be what you want tomorrow. You may have the idea that you want to be a cop. Let's just use that as an example. You may want to be a police person. And you go through everything that you need to go through, right? You go to the police academy. Well, first you take the test, then you pass the test, then you go to the police academy, and you go through all of their training, you pass the training, and you actually become a rookie cop. You get on the job, and after 1, 2, 3, 5 years or months or whatever, you realize, hey, at one point in my life, I thought that this is what I wanted. But once I got into the heart of the matter, once I got into the thick of things, I realized that, hey, being a cop is not really what I want to be. So let me try to do something different, right? I'm a living witness for that. I have my undergrad in physics. And I did that because I was very good at research. I was very good at science, and I love math. Well, I couldn't understand where or how I can use mathematics as a subject, with a degree. And so I loved, doing research. So I had a very good teacher, Mrs. Gray, who guided me in the direction of science, physics, right? And I loved it. I excelled there, right? Worked at Argonne National Laboratory, all of that. But once I got there, I realized that I just was not a lab rat. Being in the lab with the white coat, the whole nine, the safety glasses, and going in and doing all the check marks. I did my job well, but my job did not make me feel complete. I did not feel like I was really serving or walking in and acting in the purpose that I had once I came here on earth. So that was when I began to make changes. But I still have that degree. You see what I'm saying? So we want to make sure that we understand that success is variable. Just because you say yes to one thing today, that does not lock you in to say, hey, I have to do this for the next 30 years. And this message is for what we should share with our children. But I want to express this to my adults. If you're living and working every day in a job that you hate, if you go around individuals that don't have your best interests at heart, I encourage you, I implore you to leave. Well, plan it out. Don't just leave automatically, right? But set up a plan in order to live the life that you want to live on purpose, right? So understand that, one, we want to make sure that we understand that success is relative, it is subjective, and it is variable. So we always want to make sure that we stay very general as parents when we are taking the time to train our children on how to lead a successful life. So that was step number one. Step number two is to make a choice to live one yourself. Now this is the rub, right? Because I know for many parents, many adults, we've lived life and we've had that vicarious feeling, oh yes, I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you make all these plans. You have all these big and bright ideas of what your life is going to look like. And then you step out there and then you experience life. And you fail. You fall down. And somewhere in your lifespan, you've taken on the conversation to believe that because you failed, That's not what you're supposed to do. And I get it. I totally get it. Because in our educational system, there are two lessons that are actually being taught. And you can choose whichever one you want to hone into. Because in class, we read a book and we're supposed to retain enough information to take a test and to pass that test. And passing, well, when I was going to school, was at least a 70 or higher. And everyone who got an A, which was a 93 or above, I'm aging myself, so please forgive me, was an A. And they were praised for that. But those individuals that got that 69, that 60, that 50, heck, that 25%, that 10% were not praised. As a matter of fact, not only were they not praised, but they were penalized for not hitting the mark, for not doing or excelling on that piece of paper, on that particular test. Now, I am not an advocate of not doing your best. I'm not an advocate for that. I believe in giving it your all. But at the same time, I do understand that for some individuals in some areas, when they receive that 10%, when they receive that 25%, when they receive that 50% on that test, that was their all. Maybe that particular teacher just did not teach them or instruct them based on their learning style, right? Maybe that particular subject just wasn't something that they really even liked or that they even cared about. So just because you got a 10% or 25% or even a 50%, which is in society deemed as a fail, does not make you a failure. So for my adults who have children, I know it can be really, really difficult to tell your children that they can have the life that they want when you're not living the life that you want. And I'm here to share with you at any given moment, you can begin to live the life of your dreams. But first, you have to begin to dream again. Dreaming is not just for the child. Dreaming is just not for the adolescent. Dreaming does not stop the moment you hit 18. Now, for some individuals, you may have allowed yourself to stop dreaming because at some point you chose to believe that whatever it is that you wanted didn't want you. And I'm not here to say whether you're right or whether you're wrong, because whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, either way, you are absolutely correct. My conversation with you today is to ask yourself, where did I quit on me? When did you decide that the life that you're living right now was good enough for you? When did you decide that it was okay to just be sub-average? When did you decide to stop working towards what it is that you really, really want? When did you decide to settle for less than what you are capable of rendering to the world? Ladies and gentlemen, I know it can be challenging being able to have a child and to tell your child that they can have everything that they want when you feel that life has knocked you upside of the head. When you feel like life has not dealt you a deck of cards that were stacked in your favor. But we need to understand that life is not checkers. Life is chess. And you can move strategically in the game of life in order to win. And just understanding that winning is relative Winning is subjective, and winning, along with success is variable, right? So just because you are where you are right now doesn't mean that you have to stay there. And if you want to stay there, that's totally fine. But I encourage you to encourage your children to do 10 times better than anything you could have ever thought of doing, right? So, number one, we want to make sure that we stay general in our teaching or training our children to live a successful life. Number two, we want to make sure that we make the choice to live our own successful life. And then third and finally, the third step is to plan purposeful powwows. Wow. Right? You mean to tell me I need to schedule time to talk to my child? And I say absolutely. Because if you don't train your children to go out there and to take the world, to seize the world, and to do anything and everything that they want to do in life, then who will? You see, it's not the teacher's responsibility to encourage your child. It's not the pastor's responsibility to encourage your child. It's not the principal's responsibility to encourage your child. It's not the government's responsibility to encourage your child. It is your responsibility as a parent. It is my responsibility as a mother to make sure that my children know that you could do anything that you put your mind to. Anything that you put your mind to. And I train them every morning. We have a certain affirmation that we say each and every day. Because I want them to know that there is nothing, and I know that's not correct English, so please forgive me for my English majors. There is nothing that you cannot achieve if you put your mind to it. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to fail. That doesn't mean that you're not going to hit the mark every time. That does not mean that it's not going to hurt. That does not mean that you're not going to make mistakes, because life is full of mistakes. All you have to do is learn from the mistake, learn the lesson, and then move forward. But in our third step, make sure that we plan purposeful powwows. Now, I teach in my coaching session and also in my retreats on 6 major areas of life. So, and this is not in any specific order, but these are the 6 areas that are just the general areas of life. 1 is faith, your spirituality. 2, family, either your mother, father, your married, your children, right? So faith, family, finance, how you're going to live, how you're going to support yourself, fitness, friendships and fellowship, and then fun. Because some of us really need to work on having more fun. I was talking to a friend earlier today, and he was just telling me, he was like, yeah, I went out and we had dinner here, and then we went to the bowling alley there, and we had so much fun. It was such a good time. He was just sharing with me. And he was like, well, what did you do? And I said, well, I did a recording, and then I went to sleep. And he's like, that's just so boring. But I had fun doing it. I didn't feel like I missed out on anything. So I know that I need to have more fun. But there's 6 areas that just fall under those, and there are many areas that come under those 6 areas. But those are the main areas that everyone participates in some shape, form, or fashion. So what I do is carve out about anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes to just, and it doesn't, sometimes it goes 30 minutes, sometimes we can sit down and we can talk for hours about it, right? But I plan a purposeful powwow. So every day, except for one day, because we only have 6, right? So on one day we rest, and typically it's on a Sunday. We don't necessarily have those. Either it's a Sunday or it's a Saturday. It kind of varies, right? Depending on what we're doing. But every day of the week, minus 1, I choose one of the areas of life and just have, and it's not me lecturing them. It's bringing up a conversation. right? Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about God? You know, is it a man or is it a woman? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Just any kind of conversation, just so one, you can get to know a little bit about your child. Two, get a chance to understand what they're learning out in the streets. And then number three, it gives you an opportunity to pour into them. But I do want to take a step back because we can't give what we don't have. So in order to have these conversations, that might mean that you need to do some study. You need to pick up a book. You need to listen to a podcast. You need to go to a seminar. You may need to take another class. Or you may be perfectly educated in all of those areas about all of the subjects that could fall underneath all of those areas. No matter where you lay, no matter what your educational status is, the goal here is to make sure that we do not, as parents, make the mistake of not educating and supporting and mentoring our own children. You see, we do not have to allow our children to have other people as their hero. I want to be my daughter's shero. I want to be the example of a woman, of a wife, of a mother, so that when my son goes to find a mate, he has a good example to look at. But that's my choice. The question to you is, what's your choice? Do you choose to allow the world to train your child? Or do you want to help your child live the most successful life they can? And in the process of allowing your child the opportunity to live a highly successful life, allowing yourself to live a successful life. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not perfect. And here is the reality. Nobody is. We've all made mistakes. We've all had shortcomings. We've all been on top and been on bottom. Life is cyclical. And as long as you keep living, as long as you keep learning, as long as you keep striving for your own level of success, there is not one entity outside of you that could stop you. The only person, the only thing that can stop you from doing exactly what you want to do is you. So I encourage you, do you. Be selfish. Live life on your terms. And then empower your children to do the same. This has been Dr. Tanya Biglow. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and to learn. And with that, I'll talk to you again soon. Peace.